And I want to bring back this very, very simple and core concept. We should have a global campaign in the United States and every corner of the world to completely get rid of every single form of hunger. Let's do that. Let's have that very, very clear, very, very basic and human and universal goal for every single human on this planet. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I could tell you as someone, and again, I'll be very, very clear here, infinitely more sort of safe and privileged than most. But my family did experience at times some forms of food insecurity. And even those most mild things where it was never really, really going to be an issue, maybe a missed meal here, missed meal there, the anxiety, the pain of that, the depth of that is something that absolutely no one should experience. And of course, many, many human beings do. In fact, the numbers have been increasing. There's an estimated 775 million undernourished people in 2014. By 2008, that estimate had increased to 820 million. Hunger is on the rise. The UN estimates that the COVID crisis will lead to an additional 83 to 132 million undernourished people.
We live in a world where most people are encouraged to just accept the status quo and to just accept statements, official statements given out by government officials and corporations. It really is refreshing when you see, progressives who really analyze and look into the details of what's going on in the world and just the systemic inequalities that are perpetuated by those in power. It's the reason why it's incredibly sad that Michael Brooks, at the very young age of 36, a incredibly bright star in the in a very, very sparse field of progressives. Now, Michael Brooks was somebody who's inspired me for the last couple months. I've heard about Michael Brooks maybe first time about a year ago, but I only really got into his show in the last 6 months or so. And Michael Brooks is one of those guys who's, you can really relate to. He's, around my age, has a passion for, progressive, empathetic values. Somebody who's actually, well read on the subject and doesn't really dish out these talking points that you often see from political commentators. He had an incredible sense of humor, and you watched it just as much for the education as for the comedy. So no doubt it's incredibly sad to see somebody who's inspired you pass away so young and had so many plans. But we must keep the message alive. And I'm also, another thing is I'm from the UK, not very many UK listeners of Michael Brooks, but he was incredibly important for the progressive movement around the world. He knew more about the social economic factors underlying Brazil than most people did in most political commentators in America knew about American policies. He was very well read, very bright, humorous, despite the negative overhanging of cynicism from this, just last couple of years, especially this year, when just the systemic inequalities that progressives like, Michael Brooks, Noam Chomsky, Glenn Greenwald, Owen Jones, been talking about for years, decades. They've just been shown in their true light how really poorly run governments are brushing, the importance of this coronavirus pandemic under the rug, just to serve their own interests, using the coronavirus as a bargaining chip for their own political group, for their own political ends. Trump hiding coronavirus numbers just to improve his ratings. This is insanity. But we have most papers, most media organizations are private entities. They don't want to truly reflect the people on the ground, because if that were the case, the system would need a drastic change. And I was watching people like Michael Brooks. You could say the US equivalent of Owen Jones. And even though he was from the US, I felt even a stronger connection, because I was able to, really learn something every time I watched him. And he did, have streams near daily. So he'll be sadly missed and never forgotten. We must keep, this movement alive through education, through comedy, through just self-love and empathy. This is going to sound wishy-washy, but it is what truly matters in the world. When you're on your deathbed, what actually matters, it's empathy we have for each other, and to have first principles, and to have values and a moral system that doesn't actually benefit just a small group of people at the top, but actually benefits everyone. And this is not anti-capitalistic sentiment. I'm a progressive capitalist. Well, that's what I feel like right now. And I feel like there needs to be counterbalance towards the excesses of unregulated market forces, the ones that are causing climate change, the ones that are causing systemic inequalities, leading to poverty and incredible levels of crime. And Michael Brooks talked about cancel culture, which is what I'm going to talk about now. Cancel culture is another epidemic sweeping the West. And in some ways, to really explain and understand cancel culture and to proceed further on the discussion, I want to really kind of wrestle with this concept of equality first before we proceed further.